Hello everybody, here we are today doing my season preview for the Buffalo Sabres, talking about whether or not Buffalo is going to end their 13th season playoff drought and getting on into that. Now before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So last season Buffalo finished with 84 points and it was a year they failed to make the playoffs and just a very tough year for the fan base and the organization as they only dropped off 7 points from 91 points to 84. A drop off like that shouldn't be that big of a deal, but for a fan base like this where they've been stuck in a bad spot for so long, this felt very, very painful, as this is a team that's young, that is supposed to be trying to get over the hump, and instead they hit a wall. And because of that, we saw guys get fired. Don Granato was fired, and the team brought in a new head coach to try to get things fixed. So with this, along with some of the summer things that they did, we get to talk about what Buffalo's season could look like. So with all that kind of being brought up, what are some storylines for Buffalo for this year? So the first storyline is, should we even have high expectations for the Buffalo Sabres? This seems a little bit odd because Buffalo hasn't been a playoff team in a very long time, with all of these guys not being part of that. And I think for this side, it is weird imagining them having expectations, but I do think that in some ways they could have a lot of expectations, particularly because they brought back Lindy Ruff. And if you don't know who Lindy Ruff was, he was a very successful coach for the Buffalo Sabres back in the day. Last coach for them in the 2012-13 season, and in his time there, they won 2 division titles. They had 8 playoff appearances, 4 runs to the Eastern Conference Final, and then made it to the Stanley Cup Final on 1 occasion, had multiple 50-plus win seasons, and overall were just a team that could go there. Now, part of this was, again, we saw Dominik Hasek being one of the greatest goalies ever in this period, but at the same time, too, Ruff's name was attached to those teams, and I think in a lot of cases, Buffalo fans, or just fans that are hoping for things to change, are going to be looking at this and seeing a coach that gave them some of their best seasons in multiple decades now, being there and being able to fix a team. I think that while the team could get better, we are looking at this and having to understand that they're not suddenly going to go out there and be the Atlantic favorite in the division. But I imagine, too, that at the same time, people are probably getting a little bit nostalgic about everything that went down in that period. Some of it for better, some of it for worse, but there was a lot of better compared to what we're seeing now. But I think there's other reasons to be excited about this team, too, and expectations, while they could be higher. They feature a blue line that has a lot of potential, naming guys like Bowen Byram, Owen Power, and Rasmus Dahlin. And in the case of Byram, he was part of the Casey Middlestat trade and is viewed as a very big piece of what Buffalo could be going forward. Power is a former Calder finalist, and then Rasmus Dahlin is a guy that could go out there and contend for the Norris at some point in his career, at least already has now. It looked like a really good year for him last year. Just a lot of things going right on the blue line. Then you've got guys like Tage Thompson that has 114 goals over his past 3 seasons. JJ Peterka ended up flirting with a 30-goal season last year. All of these things kind of building into why the expectations could be higher. But I think at the same time, too, because the team hasn't made the playoffs in so long, even though you can't really contribute these guys' failures to all of that, you understand why, in some ways, expectations probably are put there, but at the same time, they aren't. Second storyline is talking about how will Devon Levi do this season. Devon Levi is a young goalie that has shown a lot of potential, and last year was kind of weird because in some ways the season wasn't perfect for him, but in other ways it wasn't the end-all be-all. It wasn't the coronation of the future, but looking at his final 14 starts from December onward, he had a .913 save percentage, which is a good indicator possibly of what the future could be bringing for him. And I think for a lot of Buffalo fans, they would just be ecstatic if he had a .913 save percentage by the end of the year. That is a lot to ask for a young guy, but he's in a spot right now where he probably does want to have a good year for a couple reasons. One, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, UPL, is a guy that just signed a 5-year extension, had a really good year for the team, and probably looks set to be the starter for this year. But in the coming years, maybe Levi does want to contend with him a little bit and try to be that future starter for them. But at the same time, too, it'd kind of be nice to help him out in terms of team success. And for Buffalo, that's probably really important to have that team success aspect, as if you have a good goalie tandem, you're going to be set up well for yourself in the future, especially this year if Levi and then UPL can have good years. They could be in the mix. Last year, what was it? The Capitals, I think, made the playoffs with like 91 or 92 points. The Sabres could be right there this year, although I do think that getting into the playoffs as a wildcard team would be a lot harder this season. But for Levi, I think it's especially important too, because if he has a bad year where he regresses a bit, they could be seeing UPL on a deal where he's a little bit older, but not too old, at 25 years old, where he could be the starter for them. And then we look at a guy like him and Levi that could be the odd man out. Not saying that is the case, but I think especially with goalies, you're less afraid of having an older goalie go out there and start for you. And I think in a lot of cases, some teams would actually prefer an older goalie to go out there and be their starter, especially come playoff time. So what can Devon Levi do this year in this season is going to be a big question, not only for himself, but for the team and the future of how these two do together. And I forgot to throw in here that the team's going to have to help out Levi a little bit more, as he allowed a lot of high danger chances against at 5-on-5. So he can do his part, but they have to do theirs too. Just hoping this can be mutually beneficial for both sides. And then the third and final storyline is talking about, is this team boring? This one is probably very controversial at the moment because on one hand, you're probably seeing a lot of people say Buffalo, not a major city, this team that hasn't had a lot of success. And on top of that too, they feel like a side that has been floundering in the Atlantic, much like some Atlantic counterparts alongside them that are the Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators, where they never live up to what those big aspirations tend to be. So I think there is that one camp saying that Buffalo, in some sense, is very boring. But I'm going to argue that the Buffalo Sabres are very entertaining. They are a very exciting team. And I'm going to throw this out here by JFresh. This is talking about their bottom 6 acquisitions in terms of percentile, speed, and all that, and where they rank in the NHL. They acquired some speed. They're going to be a team that can get up and down the ice possibly very, very quickly with a lot of these additions. They are a side that has a lot of young players that could go out there and compete for NHL hardware that we've already kind of discovered at this point or talking about at this point. They are a team that has a lot of younger players that haven't even cracked into the NHL yet or even got 20 games in the league that could, again, further what this team is capable of doing. And they are a team that 2 seasons ago finished 3rd in the league for goals. You bring back Lindy Ruff, a iconic coach for this franchise, to try to get them back in track, and then you have a team that very well could go out there and be in the playoff mix. I could not understand how anybody would think this team would be boring unless they truly were bad this year. But if you have guys like Peterka that crack 30 goals, Thompson goes back off, Dahlin is in the contention for the Norris, Ruff is in the contention for Jack Adams, you see UPL, Levi, etc. continuing to succeed, and this team may be breaking through and getting to end this long playoff drought. How could you not be excited about this? And I came to 3 conclusions about what you think if the Buffalo Sabres aren't exciting in your eyes. 1, it's because they're not going to be competing. 2, it's because you're a hater of the Buffalo Sabres. And 3, you just don't like hockey. So yes, Buffalo is an exciting team this year I'm going to be keeping my eye out for, and so should you. So overall, what are my thoughts for Buffalo this season? I think this is going to be a team that you just have to watch and see, for better or worse, what's actually going to be happening here. Buffalo is a side that I do feel like could go out there and do better than 84 points this year. Do I think that they're going to go out there and be a playoff team? I'm going to lead towards no for now because I need to see them go out there and do it. You hear a lot of times about how young teams have to go out there and find a way to win. And in this case, I think I need to see Buffalo break through that glass ceiling to actually see whether or not this is going to be something sustainable for the future. But at the same time, too, I think that they are well suited for the future if guys continue to grow. I think some things are going to have to change. Byram, I think, is going to have to do better in a bigger role possibly this year. I think defensively he might not have been very good, or analytically something wasn't looking very good with him. And another thing is, too, they have to be much better in the first period. Their goal differential was -30 in the first. That's going to have to change as they want to be able to be in games or ahead of games after 20 minutes of play. So Buffalo could very well go out there and miss the playoffs for a 14th straight season, and I don't even think most people would be fazed, but I think in general this team's in a better spot than they've been in for a while. And I think for people that are in the Buffalo area or just kind of around there, if you're a fan of the Sabres or if you're just a fan of hockey, go out there and watch a team. You could see multiple 30-goal scorers. You could see Thompson go off and crack 50 goals and have a good year like that. And just a lot of reasons to go out and pay to see this team play, which other times have not really been the case, as this has been a side that's been competing for the best pick. This will not be the case this year, as they should be better than that. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.